Vaughan stood at the observation window of the vigilant star and watched the stars blur past. His scales itched with irritation. 300 combat missions, 12 commendations for bravery. And this was his reward. Assignment to a mixed species unit. With humans, he turned away from the window and made his way to the briefing room. His claws clicked against the metal floor with each step. The Valari were proud warriors. They had claws and fangs and scales that could stop a blade. They had earned their place in the Galactic Coalition through blood and honor. Humans had earned their place through... what exactly? Vaughan was not sure. They were soft. They had no natural weapons. Their bodies broke easily. The reports said they were dangerous, but Vaughan had learned to trust his own eyes over reports. The briefing room door slid open. 4 humans sat around the central table. They looked up as he entered, and Vaughan studied them with a warrior's eye. The first was a male of average build with short brown hair and calm eyes. He wore lieutenant's bars on his collar. This would be Danny Cole, the squad leader. Nothing remarkable about him. Nothing threatening. Beside him sat a female with red hair pulled back tight. She was cleaning some kind of explosive device and humming softly. Sergeant Lisa Marsh, the file had said. Demolitions expert. The third was a large male with arms thicker than Vaughan's legs. He sat perfectly still, watching Vaughan with flat eyes. Corporal Tony Vance. Heavy weapons. The fourth was young, barely an adult by human standards. He fidgeted in his seat and tried to look confident. Private Kevin Grant, a fresh soldier on his first real deployment. You must be Vaughan, Danny said. His voice was quiet, unremarkable. Welcome to the team. Grab a seat. Vaughan remained standing. I was not given a choice in this assignment. Neither were we, Danny replied. He did not seem offended. Coalition wants species integration. We're the experiment. Sit down. Briefing starts in 5. Vaughan sat. He noticed the scars on Danny's hands as the human spread mission files across the table. Old scars. Many of them. The kind that came from close combat, not accidents. Lisa looked up from her explosive and smiled at him. First time working with humans? Yes, don't worry. We don't bite. She paused. Well, Tony bit a guy once, but he deserved it. Tony said nothing. Kevin laughed nervously. Vaughan did not understand the humor. He turned his attention to the mission files. The briefing was straightforward. A mining colony on the border of Krethna territory had sent a distress signal 3 hours ago. The Krethner were an insectoid species, aggressive and expansionist. They had been raiding border colonies for months. Intel suggests a small raiding force, Danny explained. Maybe 50 hostiles. Colony population is 200. Miners and their families. Families, Lisa repeated. Her smile faded. Families, Danny confirmed. Including children. Something shifted in the room. Vaughan felt it but could not name it. The humans did not move or speak, but the air seemed heavier somehow. Rules of engagement? Tony asked. It was the first time he had spoken. His voice was deep and rough. Standard coalition protocol. Minimize civilian casualties. Capture enemy combatants if possible. If possible, Kevin repeated quietly. Danny looked at each of his soldiers in turn. Something passed between them. Some understanding that Vaughan could not read. Gear up, Danny said. We drop in 30 minutes. The humans rose and left. Vaughan followed them to the armory. He watched them prepare. It was strange. They moved with efficiency, checking weapons and armor with practiced hands. But they also talked, laughed. Lisa made a joke about Kevin's inability to talk to females. Kevin turned red and threw a glove at her. Tony smiled, just barely. They did not act like soldiers preparing for combat. They acted like friends preparing for a trip. Kethvorin checked his own weapon in silence. His plasma rifle was a fine piece of Valari engineering. It could burn through Krethener armor with ease. He had used it to kill many enemies. "Nice rifle," Kevin said, appearing at his side. "Valari make good weapons. You guys are supposed to be pretty tough, right?" "We are the finest warriors in the coalition." Kevin nodded. "Cool. So you've got our backs?" Kethvorin looked down at the young human. Kevin barely reached his chest. His skin was soft and thin. His teeth were flat and useless. He would last perhaps 3 seconds against a Krethna soldier in close combat. "I will do my duty," Kethvorin said. "Good enough for me." Kevin grinned and returned to his own preparations. The ship shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace. Warning lights flashed. The pilot's voice came over the speakers. "Colony is under active siege. Enemy ships in orbit. We're going in hot." Danny appeared beside Kethvorin. He was fully armored now, a rifle in his hands. His face was calm. "Too calm. Stick close to us down there," Danny said. "Watch our backs, and we'll watch yours. I do not need protection from humans." Danny smiled. It was a strange smile. It did not reach his eyes. "I'm not offering to protect you, Keth. I'm offering to keep you alive. There's a difference. You'll understand soon." The dropship bay doors opened. Below them, the colony burned. Kethvorin could see Krethener soldiers moving through the streets. He could see bodies. He could see fire and destruction and all the familiar sights of war. Lisa stepped up beside him. She was still smiling, but it was different now, sharper. "Looks like they started the party without us," she said. "This is not a party," Kethvorin replied. "This is war." "Same thing," Lisa said. "If you're doing it right." The dropship began its descent. Kethvorin gripped his rifle and prepared for combat. He had done this many times. He was not afraid, but as he looked at the humans around him, he felt something strange. They were not afraid either. They were eager. Their eyes were bright. Their movements were quick and sharp. They wanted this. Danny checked his weapon one final time and looked back at his squad. At his family. "Remember," he said quietly, "there are children down there." The humans nodded. Something changed in their faces. Something hardened. Kethvorin felt his scales prickle. It was instinct. The same instinct that warned prey when a predator was near. But that was ridiculous. These were humans. They were soft. They were weak. They were nothing to fear. The dropship touched down. The doors opened. The humans moved, and Kethvorin followed them into the fire. The first Krethener died before Kethvorin could raise his weapon. Danny moved like water. One moment, he was stepping off the dropship. The next moment, his knife was buried in the enemy's throat. No wasted motion. No hesitation. Just death, quick and silent. Kethvorin had trained for combat his entire life. He had studied 100 fighting styles. He had never seen anything move like that. "Contact left," Lisa called out. She did not sound worried. She sounded excited. Tony raised his heavy weapon and fired. The sound was enormous. 3 Krethener soldiers exploded into pieces. "Moving up," Kevin shouted. He ran forward, firing as he moved, and slid into cover behind a burning transport vehicle. Kethvorin forced himself to move. His training took over. He raised his rifle and found targets. The Krethener were everywhere, their black shells gleaming in the firelight. They were fast and deadly. Their claws could cut through armor. He fired. One enemy fell. He fired again. Another fell, but the humans were faster. Lisa threw something into a group of Krethener. The explosion sent bodies flying. She laughed and threw another. Tony walked through the street like he was taking a casual stroll. Enemy fire hit his armor, and he did not even flinch. He just kept walking, kept firing, kept killing. Kevin took a hit to his shoulder. Kethvorin saw the blood. He expected the young human to fall, to scream, to die. Kevin did not fall. He looked at the wound, looked at the Krethner who had shot him, and shot back. The enemy dropped. Just a scratch, Kevin said. He kept fighting. Kethvorin did not understand. Humans were supposed to be fragile. Their bodies were supposed to break easily. But Kevin was still moving, still fighting, with a hole in his shoulder and blood running down his arm. The squad pushed forward, street by street, building by building. The Krethner fell before them like grass before a fire. Kethvorin had fought beside Valari warriors his whole life. He knew what good soldiers looked like. These humans were not good soldiers. They were something else. Something he had no name for. Danny signaled a halt at a large building. The colony's medical center. Survivors might be inside, he said. Stack up. The humans moved into position. Kethvorin followed. Tony kicked the door open. Lisa threw a flashbang inside. The humans entered before the flash faded. More killing. More death. The Krethner inside never had a chance. When the last enemy fell, Danny called out. Clear. Check for survivors. Kethvorin moved through the medical center. The smell of blood was thick in the air. He found bodies. Miners. Workers. Civilians who had died defending their home. He found something else too. A Valari soldier lay against the wall. His scales were torn. His blood pooled beneath him. But he was alive. Barely. Drexel, Kethvorin breathed. He rushed to his old friend's side. They had trained together. Fought together. Drexel had been stationed at this colony for protection duty. Keth, Drexel whispered. His eyes were wild, unfocused. You came. You brought humans? Yes, we are here to help. Hold on. The medic will? No. Drexel grabbed his arm with surprising strength. Listen to me. The humans. You do not understand what they are. What do you mean? I saw them. A human cargo ship was here when the attack started. The crew fought. Keth, I watched a human female kill 12 Krethner with a metal pipe. 12. She was protecting children in the shelter. Where is she now? Dead. They killed her. But she kept fighting even after they cut her open. She would not stop. She would not fall. Not until every child was safe. Drexel's grip tightened. His breathing was getting worse. The Krethner took survivors. Took them to the mines. Including children. Keth, do not let the humans know. If they find out about the children, what? What happens? Drexel looked past him. His eyes widened in fear. Not at the enemy. At something behind KETH single quotes, VORIN. Danny stood in the doorway. He had heard everything. Drexel died with that fear still in his eyes. Kethvorin rose slowly. He faced Danny. The human's expression had not changed, but something was different. The air felt colder somehow. The mines, Danny said softly. They took children to the mines. We should wait for reinforcements. The mines are a tactical nightmare. We would be walking into a trap. Danny did not respond. He turned and walked back to his squad. Kethvorin followed. He found the humans gathered in the medical center's lobby. Megan Price, the combat medic, had joined them. She was small and quick, with clever hands and cold eyes. She was cleaning blood off her knife. Survivors are in the mines, Danny said. Including children. Silence. Then something changed. Kethvorin watched it happen. The laughter faded from Lisa's face. Tony's eyes, already hard, became stone. Kevin stopped fidgeting. Megan's hands went still. They looked at each other. No words, just looks. And somehow, in that silence, a decision was made. How many children? Megan asked. Unknown. Then we find out. She stood. I'll need more bandages. And more ammunition. We cannot go into those mines, Kethvorin said. It is tactically foolish. We should wait for... No. Danny's voice was quiet, calm, but it cut through the air like a blade. We are going into those mines. We are finding those children. And we are bringing them home. That is not a suggestion. That is not a request. That is what is going to happen. Kethvorin looked at the humans. They were already moving, checking weapons, gathering supplies, preparing. This is suicide, he said. Lisa looked at him. Her smile was gone. In its place was something else. Something that made his scales prickle with ancient fear. Maybe, she said. But those are children. And we don't leave children behind. Ever. She walked past him toward the exit. Kethvorin stood alone in the medical center. Drexel's warning echoed in his mind. You do not understand what they are. He was beginning to understand. And the understanding terrified him. The humans were already outside, moving toward the mines. Kethvorin took a breath, gripped his rifle, and followed. He was a Valari warrior. He did not run from fear. But as he walked behind the humans into the darkness, he wondered if perhaps he should. The mines swallowed them whole. Kethvorin had excellent night vision. It was a gift of his species. But even his eyes struggled in this darkness. The humans had no such gift. They should have been blind. They were not blind. Danny cracked a small chemical stick. Green light spilled out, weak and pale. The humans moved forward without hesitation. How can you see? Kethvorin asked quietly. We can't, Kevin replied. Not really. But we can hear, feel. You hunt by smell? When we have to. Humans used to chase animals for days. Weeks sometimes. We'd follow them until they collapsed from exhaustion. Persistence hunting. Our ancestors didn't need to be faster. They just needed to never stop. Kethvorin considered this. A species that hunted by refusing to give up. That kept moving forward no matter what. Perhaps the reports about humans were not entirely wrong. The tunnels stretched deep into the earth. The air grew thick and hot. Somewhere in the darkness, water dripped. The sound echoed off the walls. Danny raised a fist. The squad stopped. Contact ahead, he whispered. Sentry, 50 meters. Kethvorin strained his eyes. He could barely make out a shape in the darkness. How had Danny seen it first? I'll handle it, Tony said. He moved forward. His massive body made no sound. Kethvorin watched him disappear into the shadows. Seconds passed. Then a wet crunching noise. Tony reappeared. His knuckles were bloody. Behind him, something lay in the darkness. Something that was no longer alive. Clear, Tony said. You could have used your weapon, Kethvorin said. Guns are loud. Megan's voice was casual. Would have warned the others. Sometimes hands work better. She said it like it was nothing. Like killing with bare hands was normal, practical, just another tool. Kethvorin looked at his own claws. The Valari were feared for their natural weapons. They were proud of their ability to kill without tools. But watching Tony's bloody hands, he felt no pride. Only unease. The squad moved deeper. They found more sentries, more bodies. The humans worked in silence, communicating with hand signals and quiet looks. Kethvorin tried to keep up, tried to contribute. But the humans were always faster, always one step ahead. He began to understand something. The humans were not fighting like soldiers. They were fighting like hunters. Every movement had purpose. Every kill was calculated, and they were not going to stop. Not until they found what they were looking for. They reached a junction. 3 tunnels branched off in different directions. Which way? Lisa asked. Danny closed his eyes. He tilted his head, listening. Left, he said. I can hear them. Hear what? Children crying. They went left. The tunnel narrowed. They had to move single file. Kevin took point. Kethvoren noticed the young human was limping. The wound in his leg had not been properly treated. Blood soaked through his bandages. You should stop, Kethvoren said. Your wound is fine. Kevin did not slow down. We don't stop. Not now. Not ever. You will bleed to death. Then I'll bleed. But I'll keep moving until I can't move anymore. He said it simply, without drama or heroics. Just a statement of fact. Kethvoren had seen Valari warriors continue fighting despite terrible wounds. It was considered the highest form of honor. But this was different. Kevin was not fighting for honor. He was not trying to prove anything. He simply refused to stop because stopping was not an option. Pain just means I'm still alive, Kevin had said earlier. You learn to make it fuel. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber. Krethner soldiers stood guard over a group of huddled figures. Miners, workers, and children. At least a dozen of them, clustered together in fear. Danny held up a hand. The squad froze. Kethvoren counted the enemy. 20 soldiers. Maybe more in the shadows. The odds were not good. Too many, he whispered. We need a plan. I have a plan, Danny said. What is it? Danny looked at him. In the dim green light, his eyes seemed to glow. Kill them all. Before Kethvoren could respond, Danny moved. The first Krethner died silently. Danny's knife opened its throat before it could make a sound. The second died just as fast. Then the shooting started. Lisa threw explosives. Tony opened fire. Kevin and Megan advanced together, weapons blazing. Kethvoren fought. His rifle spat plasma. Bodies fell. But he could barely keep up with the chaos around him. The humans fought like demons. Lisa danced through the enemy, laughing as she killed. Tony took hit after hit and did not fall. Kevin, bleeding from multiple wounds, kept pushing forward, but it was Danny who held. Kethvoren asked attention. The human squad leader moved through the Krethner like smoke. Every shot was precise. Every movement was perfect. He was not fighting. He was executing. A Krethner soldier grabbed a child. A hostage. A shield. Danny did not hesitate. His knife flew through the air and buried itself in the soldier's eye. The child fell free. Danny caught her before she hit the ground. You're safe, he whispered. I've got you. The child clung to him, sobbing. Danny handed her to Megan without breaking stride and drew another knife. More killing. More death. The chamber filled with blood and smoke and screams, and then it was over. Kethvoren stood among the bodies, breathing hard. His scales were splashed with blood. His heart pounded in his chest. The humans were already moving among the survivors, checking wounds, offering comfort. Their weapons were still warm, still bloody, but their voices were soft. Gentle. Kevin knelt beside a young boy. The child was crying. Kevin put his hand on the boy's shoulder. Hey, Kevin said quietly. You're okay now. The monsters are gone. We're going to take you home. The boy looked up at him. At this bleeding, wounded human who had just killed a dozen enemies. Promise? The boy asked. Kevin smiled. Promise. Kethvoren watched them. He did not understand. How could creatures capable of such violence also be capable of such tenderness? How can hands that killed with such efficiency also offer comfort with such care? He looked at Danny. The squad leader was speaking quietly with the adult survivors. His voice was calm, reassuring, like he had not just slaughtered 20 beings. In the space of minutes. Dr. is all. Words echoed in his mind. You do not understand what they are. Keth. Voron was beginning to understand. And the understanding terrified him more than any battle ever had. The survivors huddled in the chamber while the humans secured the area. 32 people. 18 adults. 14 children. They were frightened, wounded, but alive. Keth Voron helped Megan treat the injured. Her hands moved quickly, stitching wounds and applying bandages with practiced ease. She worked on a young girl whose arm had been broken. This will hurt for a second, Megan told the girl. But then it will feel better. Can you be brave for me? The girl nodded. Megan set the bone with a quick, precise movement. The girl cried out but did not scream. Good job, Megan said. She smiled warmly. You're very brave. The same hands that had killed a dozen Krethna now wrapped a bandage around the child's arm with perfect gentleness. Keth Voron turned away. He found Danny studying a map of the mine system. There is another group, Danny said without looking up. Deeper in. The Krethner commander has them in the processing center. Processing center? Where they prepare captives for transport. They sell prisoners, slaves. The word hung in the air. Heavy, ugly. How many captives? Keth Voron asked. Unknown. But there were children in the main group who were asking about siblings. Brothers and sisters who were separated. Keth Voron understood. More children. Deeper in the mines. Held by the enemy commander. We cannot leave them, he said. Danny looked at him. For a moment, something like respect flickered in his eyes. No, Danny agreed. We cannot. The squad gathered. Lisa had used most of her explosives. Tony had taken 3 wounds, but refused treatment. Kevin could barely stand, but he refused to stay behind. The processing center is 2 levels down, Danny explained. Intel suggests heavy resistance. At least 40 soldiers plus the commander. We are 5, Keth Voron said. 6 with me. 6 is enough. Keth Voron almost laughed. Almost, but he looked at the humans and saw no humor in their faces. They believed it. They truly believed that 6 soldiers could defeat 40. Perhaps they were mad. Or perhaps they knew something he did not. They left Megan with the survivors. She was needed to protect them. She argued, but Danny overruled her. Keep them safe, he said. That's an order. You'd better come back, she replied. All of you. Danny touched her shoulder briefly. Then he turned and led the squad deeper into the mines. The descent was harder. The tunnels grew narrower. The darkness grew heavier. Keth Voron's night vision showed him shapes moving in the shadows. Krethna scouts. Danny found them before they could report. His knife was never still. They reached the processing center. It was a large cavern, lit by harsh industrial lights. Cages lined the walls. Inside the cages, prisoners waited. More children among them. The Krethner commander stood at the center. He was larger than his soldiers, his shell adorned with marks of rank. Around him, 40 soldiers waited with weapons ready. They had been expected. Coalition forces. The commander spoke in Galactic Standard. His voice was like rocks scraping together. You are surrounded, outnumbered. Lay down your weapons, and you will be processed with the others. Danny did not lower his weapon. Neither did the others. We are here for the prisoners, Danny said. Release them and we will let you leave. The commander made a sound that might have been laughter. You are 6. I have 40 warriors. You have no leverage. We have something better. What? Danny smiled. It was not a nice smile. Motivation. The commander clicked his mandibles. You threaten me? You soft, weak creatures dare to. You took children. Danny's voice was quiet, calm, but something in it made the commander stop. You put children in cages. You planned to sell them as slaves. You hurt them, frightened them, made them cry. Danny took a step forward. The Krethener soldiers raised their weapons. Danny did not stop. There is nothing in this galaxy that will save you now. Not your soldiers. Not your armor. Not your gods. You touch children, and we are going to kill every single one of you. The commander hesitated. Just for a moment. Just long enough to doubt. Then Lisa threw her last explosive. The blast tore through the Krethener ranks. Bodies flew. Chaos erupted. The humans moved. Cathvorin had thought he understood human combat after the earlier battles. He had been wrong. What he saw now was something else entirely. Danny killed 6 soldiers in the first 10 seconds. His movements were brutal, efficient, without mercy. Tony waded into the enemy like a force of nature. Soldiers tried to bring him down. He kept moving, kept healing. Blood ran down his armor, and he did not care. Lisa fought with knives now. Her explosives were gone, but her fury was not. She danced between enemies, cutting and slashing. Kevin could barely stand. His wounds had reopened. Blood poured from his leg. He leaned against a pillar and kept shooting. Each shot found its marked. And Cathvorin fought beside them. His rifle sang. His claws tore. For the first time in his life, he felt like he was fighting alongside equals. No, not equals. He was fighting alongside something greater. The Krethener soldiers fell. One by one, dozen by dozen. They outnumbered the humans 7-1, but it did not matter. The commander tried to run. Danny caught him. Please, the commander begged. I surrender. Take me prisoner. I have rights under coalition law. You lost those rights when you took children. Danny's knife moved. The commander fell. Silence filled the cavern. 40 Krethener soldiers lay dead. The humans stood among them, breathing hard, covered in blood. Cathvorin opened the cages. The prisoners stared at him with wide eyes. They were too afraid to move until Kevin limped over. It's okay, Kevin said softly. You're safe now. We're the good guys. A young boy stepped forward. He could not have been more than 6 years old. The monsters are gone? He asked. Kevin knelt down. His face was pale from blood loss. His hands were shaking. But he smiled at the child. The monsters are gone. We killed them all. No one will ever hurt you again. The boy threw his arms around Kevin's neck. Kevin held him gently, carefully, like the child was made of glass. Cathvorin watched. His heart ached with something he could not name. Tony gathered the smaller children. He carried 3 of them in his massive arms. They clung to him without fear. Lisa helped the older prisoners walk. Her voice was soft, patient. Nothing like the warrior who had laughed while killing. Danny stood apart, watching his people, his soldiers, his family. Cathvorin approached him. How? He asked. How do you do this? How can you be so violent and so gentle? Danny looked at him. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he spoke. Because they're the same thing. Violence in defense of the innocent is not cruelty. It's love. And there is nothing more dangerous in this universe than someone who loves. He turned and helped a woman to her feet. Cathvorin stood alone among the bodies of the slain. He understood now. He finally understood, and the understanding terrified him to his core. The Vigilant Star hung in orbit above the ruined colony. Its medical bay was filled with survivors. Its corridors echoed with the sounds of crying children being comforted and wounded, soldiers being treated. Cathvorin stood at the observation window where his journey had begun. Below him, the colony still burned. But the fires were smaller now. Emergency crews had landed. Help had arrived. Too late to fight. Just in time to clean up. The door behind him opened. He did not turn. He knew who it was by the footsteps. "You should be in medical," Kethvorin said. Kevin limped up beside him. His leg was wrapped in thick bandages. His arm was in a sling. His face was pale, but his eyes were bright. "Doc says I'll live. Might even get to keep the leg." He grinned. "Tony's doing better too. He was awake enough to complain about the food, so that's a good sign." Kethvorin said nothing. He watched the stars. "You did good down there," Kevin said. "For a first-timer with humans, I mean. Most aliens freeze up when they see us fight. You kept your head." "I was terrified." "Yeah," Kevin nodded. "So were we." Kethvorin turned to look at him. "You? Afraid? Of course. We're always afraid. Fear is normal. Fear is healthy. Fear keeps you alert." Kevin leaned against the window frame. "The trick isn't to stop being afraid. The trick is to keep moving anyway." "But you fought like you had no fear at all." "We fought like we had something worth fighting for." Kevin looked down at the colony. Those kids, those families, they were depending on us. When you have something to protect, fear becomes fuel. It gives you strength. Kethvorin considered this. The Valari trained for years to master fear, to suppress it, to become cold and logical in battle. Humans did not suppress their fear. They used it. Perhaps that was why they were so terrifying. The door opened again. Danny stepped through. He had cleaned up since the battle. His armor was gone. He wore simple clothes now. Without the blood and the weapons, he looked almost ordinary. Almost. "Kevin, you're supposed to be resting." "I was just leaving." Kevin pushed himself off the wall and limped toward the door. He paused beside Kethvorin. "See you around, Keth. You're okay. For a lizard." He disappeared through the door, leaving Danny and Kethvorin alone. Silence stretched between them. Kethvorin searched for words. "I have questions," he finally said. "I know. Will you answer them?" Danny moved to stand beside him at the window. "I'll try." Kethvorin gathered his thoughts. He had been thinking about this since the mines, since he watched humans kill and comfort in the same breath. "What are you?" he asked. "I have fought beside many species. I have never seen anything like humans. You are not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most advanced, but you terrify me in a way I cannot explain." Danny was quiet for a long moment. "Do you know our history?" he asked. "Some of it. Your world is harsh. High gravity, predators, disease. You call it a death world. It is, but that's not what makes us what we are." Danny turned to face him. "What makes us dangerous is not where we come from. It's what we've done to ourselves. I do not understand. Humans have been killing each other since the beginning. We invented war before we invented writing. We've committed atrocities against our own kind that would make the Krethener look like children playing games." Kethvorin felt a chill run down his spine. "We are monsters," Danny said quietly. "We know it. We've seen what we can become. We've stared into the darkness of our own souls, and we've seen horrors that no alien species could imagine." He paused. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. "But we've also seen something else. We've seen humans walk into fire to save strangers. We've seen soldiers throw themselves on explosives to protect friends. We've seen parents die for children, lovers, die for each other, and ordinary people become heroes in moments of crisis." "That is what I do not understand," Kethvorin said. "How can you be both? How can you contain such violence and such love in the same heart? Because they're not different things." "Not for us." Danny looked out at the stars. "Love and violence come from the same place. They're both expressions of the same thing, our refusal to accept what is when what is hurts the people we care about." He turned back to Kethvorin. "When those Krethener took those children, they woke something in us, something old, something that exists in every human, buried deep. We call it many things: protective instinct, righteous fury, love. And there is no limit to it? None. There is nothing we won't do for those we've chosen to protect. No distance we won't travel. No enemy we won't face. No sacrifice we won't make. Danny smiled sadly. That's the terror of humanity, Keth, not our violence. Our love. Because a human who loves will tear the universe apart to keep that love safe. Keth Vaughan absorbed this. He thought about Kevin, bleeding from a dozen wounds, holding a frightened child. About Tony, silent and deadly, carrying children in arms that had crushed enemy soldiers. About Lisa, laughing in battle, gentle in peace. About Danny, who killed without hesitation and comforted without reservation. The galaxy fears you, Keth Vaughan said. The galaxy is right to fear us. We fear ourselves sometimes. Danny shrugged. But we're also the ones who will answer when someone calls for help. We're the ones who will stand between innocence and danger. We're the monsters who protect other monsters from worse monsters. He offered his hand to Keth Vaughan, a human gesture of friendship. We're humans. And that's both the best and the worst thing we can be. Keth Vaughan looked at the hand. This hand that had killed so many. This hand that had held a crying child with infinite gentleness. He took it. I was wrong about your species, he said. I thought you were weak because you were soft. But you are not soft. You are simply flexible. Danny laughed. It was a real laugh this time. I like that. Flexible. I'll have to tell Lisa. They stood together at the window, warrior and warrior. Protector and protector Don below them. The colony's fires finally faded. Above them, the stars burned eternal. Keth Vaughan had gone into the mines fearing for his life. He had emerged fearing something else entirely. He had seen the truth of humanity. The capacity for limitless violence born from limitless love. The willingness to become monsters to protect the innocent. The terrible, beautiful duality that made humans the most dangerous species in the galaxy. And somehow, knowing this truth, he was not afraid, because now he understood. Humans were not the enemy. They were the wall between darkness and light. The last defense for those who could not defend themselves. They were terrifying. They were wonderful. They were human. And Keth Vaughan was honored to have fought beside them. The vigilant star turned toward home. In its heart, children slept peacefully, watched over by soldiers who would die before letting harm touch them. Keth Vaughan watched the humans gather in the observation lounge. Kevin taught the children a simple game. Lisa made them laugh. Tony stood guard at the door, silent and watchful and endlessly patient. Danny sat with a young girl on his lap. She had fallen asleep against his chest. He held her gently, carefully, like the most precious thing in the universe. This was humanity. This was the terror, not the violence, not the killing, not the endless capacity for destruction. The terror was the love. The fierce, burning, unstoppable love that would never surrender, never retreat. Never abandon those it had sworn to protect. Keth Vaughan finally understood why the galaxy whispered about humans in fear and wonder. And he was glad, so very glad, that they were on his side.